Hello, my name is Julia Fellows, and I'm an admissions counselor here at George Mason University. It's so nice to virtually meet you, and I am so looking forward to sharing more about Mason with you today. We usually break this presentation up into four main parts. I'll speak a little bit about the history of George Mason University, followed by academics, student life, and the application process. So to begin with, usually I ask if anyone is familiar with who George Mason was, the person, not the university. George Mason actually wrote the Virginia Declaration of Rights, which in turn influenced the United States Constitution. Some refer to him as a founding father, but obviously that was quite a ways away ago. It actually wasn't until 1957 that we were founded, and in 1972 we became our own independent university. But today we have grown quite a lot since 1972. We are presently the largest public research university in the Commonwealth in the state of Virginia. We have 37,000 patriots in total. Of that 37,000, 25,000 make up our undergraduate population. So students, when you are envisioning yourself at Mason, envision yourself with more like 25,000, give or take, as opposed to those 37,000 that of course includes our graduate population. We are the youngest law school within the top 50 nationally. We're also the second largest residential campus in the Commonwealth. This is something that we are especially proud of. We have really worked over the last decade to grow our residential population. This is something that we value on Mason's campus. We want our students to live and reside here so that they can have that full immersive college experience. We also have students from all 50 states. Usually these information sessions are so indicative of that. We have families from the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, and we also have students from 139 different countries. As the most diverse institution in the Commonwealth, this is something that we celebrate and value in our students. We're thrilled. Again, their university is reflective of our nation, and with 139 countries, reflective of the world in which we live. So we are constantly growing and changing. Mason is very much a place that is ever changing in that regard. Just one example of how we are quite literally building Patriot Pride. You may know that Amazon is adding a headquarters to the greater Washington, D.C. area, specifically in Arlington. And thus we are adding a School of Computing with a cloud computing degree as a public Tier 1 research institution. And Tier 1 basically means that we produce research, our students are doing research that is of the same caliber as Ivy League institutions. Because we are a public Tier 1 research institution with STEM programs that are already so strong, it's only fitting that we would be adding this School of Computing with a cloud computing degree. We are so excited to hopefully continue to foster a relationship with Amazon as an opportunity for internships and maybe even employment for our students. Again, just one example of how we are continuing to quite literally build Patriot Pride. So next, we're going to speak about academics. Academics are very much the focal point of who we are and what we do here at George Mason University. First and foremost, only fitting that with 37,000 patriots, we would have over 80 majors and over 200 minors and concentrations. Just to give you one example of how these majors and minors work, because out of all of the high schools that I've traveled to, I have yet to encounter a high school that offers majors and minors. Let's say that you were pursuing a pre-med track, of course with the intent to go to medical school post-grad. If that was the case, you would declare a major like biology or biochemistry, and then a minor or a concentration in molecular biology, for example. Additionally, we offer over 55 accelerated master's programs. An accelerated master's program is an excellent way to receive your master's degree in succession after receiving your bachelor's degree, and accelerated meaning these programs are condensed. Additionally, like most other schools that are similar to us in profile as far as size, public Tier 1 research institutions, we do offer, in fact, require a Mason Core. This Mason Core consists of a set of core classes that all incoming freshmen are required to take. Now, I would imagine that perhaps some wheels are turning in your mind as far as what about AP or IB or even dual enrollment credits? The answer is yes, we do accept AP, IB, dual enrollment credit, although of course that's a case-by-case basis, if you will, because each student is different. Each student comes in with different credit, and we also acknowledge that not all students attend high schools where AP, IB, dual enrollment credit is offered, but know that that is credit that we accept. When talking about academics, I can't not speak about experiential learning. Experiential learning is an integral element of academic life here at Mason. When we're talking about experiential learning, we're talking about learning inside of a classroom at Mason, but we're also talking about learning outside of the Mason classroom, getting outside of the confines of Mason's campus, whether that is going to the Hill and advocating for various policies that you care deeply about as a political science major, for example, or traveling to our Smithsonian campus, which I'll share more about later on, as an environmental science, ecology, conservation major. There really are just a plethora of opportunities just outside of Mason's campus and beyond, where students can actually apply what they're learning in their classes to these real-world experiences. Academic advising is another imperative element when we're talking about academics here at Mason. If and when you come to Mason, students, regardless of whether you have declared a major or not, you will receive an academic advisor. This person will support you in registering for classes. They will ensure that you graduate in 4 years or less than 4 years if you are so ambitious. Usually loved ones are pleased to hear that these advisors will support students in that 4-year track. But they're really just there to be just another support opportunity for students. 2 final facts that I want to highlight when talking about academics here at Mason, and those are our ratios and our class sizes. We have a 16:1 faculty to student ratio. And I just would like to pause there for a moment. For a school of 37,000 students, it is rare that we have a 16:1 faculty to student ratio. Our professors are excited about teaching students. They enjoy teaching. In fact, over 90% of our classes are taught by professors. We have nothing against teachers' aides or student aides, but it's just not common to see them at Mason. In that same vein, our average class size is 25 to 35 students. Again, for a school of 37,000 Patriots, this is crazy. It is so neat that our students have this specialized learning environment, and this average is true for our freshman classes as well. Now, I always get the question, what about those labs, those freshman biology labs? Those about 100 size person classes do exist, but again, they're rare. These ratios, these class sizes, really allow for students to have a specialized learning environment here at Mason. A small school feel in a larger school. We're excited about all that this means for this undergraduate academic experience for our Mason students. So in speaking about academics here at George Mason University, only makes sense to mention our Honors College. I describe our Honors College as something for our students that are especially hungry, eager, ready to learn and challenge themselves in their undergraduate academic experience. Some key characteristics of our Honors College: we offer an honors curriculum that is in lieu of the Mason Core. This honors curriculum is actually slightly smaller in credits than the Mason Core, and these classes are a bit more rigorous in nature, but they also have an even heightened element of experiential learning. These classes are capped at 25 students, so an even more specialized learning environment for these students. And additionally, they tend to be more Socratic in nature, so discussion-based, a lot of question and answer. Students are expected to participate as opposed to more of a lecture-style classroom. Other elements of the Honors College: honors students have the option to live in the Honors LLC, the Living Learning Community. Again, this is optional, but it's designed to be a support for these honors students. LLCs are spaces on campus, either composed of an entire residence hall or a portion of a residence hall where students who share a common interest all live together. Again, probably don't have to explain it twice, but it's a built-in support network for these students. You'll note that we also have an engineering LLC, a first generation LLC, a service LLC, various arts LLCs. We don't just have the Honors LLC, but know that this LLC is specifically available to honors students. A few other things to note with regards to the Honors College, some additional perks, if you will. Honors students get an additional academic advisor on top of the academic advisor that all students receive if and when they come to Mason. Additionally, honors students have priority course registration. I always like to clarify that does not mean that our general students do not get the classes that they need. Again, all academic advisors work diligently with students to ensure that they're getting the classes that they need, that they're registering for the classes that they need for that matter, so that they can graduate in 4 years. So in talking about academics, we've spoken about life inside the classroom, mentioned the Honors College. Only makes sense to mention our proximity to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. DC is not only an incredible opportunity for cultural immersion between free museums, art festivals, food trucks, but it's also a tremendous opportunity for internships and even job opportunities for our students. In fact, we have a free Mason shuttle that runs to the nearest metro stop, which is right on the Orange Line. It's just about a 20-25 minute ride right into the heart of downtown DC, where students can either be pursuing those internships or just simply spending time over the weekend doing any of those activities that I mentioned earlier. Hopefully you all recognize just a few, if not all, of the employers that you're now seeing on the screen. These are not only employers with whom we've established relationship, connection with, but these are examples of internships, of places where our students have interned. Just to highlight one, the Smithsonian Institution, or really the network of Smithsonians, if you will. We are the only university in the nation that has one of our campuses as a Smithsonian Research Institute. Especially for our environmental science, ecology, conservation students, these students are able to look at all of the unique species of animals that exist on this campus throughout the sprawling acreage. My coworkers and I were recently able to tour this campus. There's some really fascinating genetic research that is taking place there. This Smithsonian connection is just one example of all of the internship opportunities that are available to our Mason students. In fact, our University Career Services Center, every year we host about 500 different employers with whom students can connect with. This career fair is a tremendous opportunity for students to increase their rapport amongst these employers and really just look out into the future as far as opportunities post-Mason. I also want to note that out of all Virginia public institutions for the past several years, our graduates have had the highest starting average salary. So as I just referred to, as far as having a campus that is a Smithsonian, we do have other locations. Fairfax is very much our main location, our central location. This is where our over 80 majors and over 200 minors and concentrations are housed. This is where our students live, reside, but we also have additional locations. Prince William caters to a few very specific science and tech programs. Front Royal is where our Smithsonian is held. Arlington is where our law school is located and where our School of Computing will be, also where Amazon will have its headquarters. And Korea, which is just right down the road, right? So we are thrilled. In the last several years, we've established a campus in Songdo, South Korea, which is just about 30 miles outside of the capital. Global awareness, global mindedness is something that is of tremendous value to Mason as an institution, and it's something that is valued by our student body. So it was only fitting to establish this campus in Songdo. Currently, we offer 5 full degree programs that are available to our students in Songdo, and we have a 3-1 program available where students can spend 3 years in South Korea and 1 year in Fairfax. The application process is standardized. The logistics of actually getting to South Korea are a bit more complicated, but there is a breadth of information on our website, specifically on the Mason Korea website, where you can learn more information about studying abroad in South Korea. So we don't just offer opportunities for students to study abroad in South Korea. We actually have over 160 different programs available to students spanning across 75 plus different countries. So a wide variety of programs and many different countries for students to choose from. Again, because global mindedness, global awareness is something that we value, only fitting that we would want our students to quite literally get out of Fairfax's campus and study abroad. And we do mean study abroad. We actually have our students work intentionally with their academic advisors and/or the specific program with which they are studying abroad to ensure that they're actually completing classes abroad. We offer year-round study abroad opportunities. Students are not limited to a certain time frame, and we have scholarships and financial aid available as well. So when speaking about first-year community transitioning now from academics, imperative to note that we are the second largest residential campus in the Commonwealth. First-year community residential life is a huge part of student life here on Mason's campus. We currently have 3 dining halls on campus, as well as over 30 restaurants, which we'll talk about a little bit more in our next slide. We also have some state-of-the-art rec facilities. We offer free laundry, a 24-hour tech help desk, a parking lot. What a concept. Speaking of our parking lot, first-year students can have cars on campus, so that's just something to note. Additionally, I like to pose this question, especially in my information sessions. Students, would you attend a college campus that did not have Wi-Fi? I doubt it, honestly. But know that we have Wi-Fi as well as other essential amenities like cable access, a bed, a desk, closet, dresser, all of these important elements that make up your first year residential experience. And while we're talking about residential life, it's important to note that we require students to live on campus for their freshman and sophomore year. Granted, for our students that come to Mason who live in very close proximity to Fairfax's campus, we do offer a housing exemption for those students, but generally speaking, students live on campus for their first 2 years. And then we're about split 50-50 as far as our upperclassmen. About 50% live on campus, 50% live off. So as you can see, these are just some of the many retail locations, dining options, restaurants available on Mason's campus. And were you to be here right now, you would note that there are these little white cubes on wheels, also known as robots, that deliver much of this food to pretty much every building on Mason's campus. We were actually a beta test site for these robots. I must say they are getting a bit more dexterous, a bit more bold in their street crossing ability, so just something to be mindful of if and when you visit campus. But know that these are just some of the many delightful, delectable, delicious dining options that students can enjoy here at Mason. Also want to note that we have a full-time nutritionist to cater to any dietary needs or restrictions, as well as a Mason-run greenhouse. This is yet another example of experiential learning, as this greenhouse is staffed by Mason students. The produce that is then grown in this greenhouse is sourced in our dining halls, and then it's consumed by Mason students. So I do want to make sure that we highlight some non-overtly academic student resources. First and foremost, ODIME. ODIME is our Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Multicultural Education. As the most diverse institution in the Commonwealth, ODIME celebrates diversity. We are thrilled that our campus, that our student body is reflective of the world in which we live. When we're talking about diversity, of course we're talking about diversity of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, but also diversity of thought, expression, belief, sexual orientation. These are all things that ODIME celebrates, that our university celebrates. Next, we have CAPS, our Center for Counseling and Psychological Services. When I mention CAPS, I like to affirm that the transition of coming to college is significant. It's a big step in a young person's life. We care that you're doing well externally. We care that you're performing well in your courses when you come to Mason, but we also care that you're doing well internally. And so CAPS is designed to be a place that can support you with that transition. Finally, disability services. Disability services caters to our students with physical and/or learning disabilities. We are actively working to make our campus as accessible as possible. Only fitting that with 37,000 Patriots, we would have over 460 student clubs and organizations, ranging from a cappella groups to political groups to religious groups to Greek life. We really just have a host of organizations, clubs and organizations for that matter, available to Mason students. When I've been traveling throughout the country, I consistently mention that I can practically guarantee that we have what you're interested in just because we have so many student clubs and organizations. We also are a D1 school. We offer sports at the varsity club and intramural level. You may remember that in 2006, not that long ago, our men's basketball team made it to the Final Four. We still talk about it as if it happened yesterday. We're still very proud of our men and women's basketball teams and all of our teams in that regard. If nothing else that I have said in this presentation has been of interest to you, I would invite you to consider Mason purely for our school spirit. We are constantly repping and proud to be Patriots and repping that green and gold. Our sporting events are a ton of fun. Not only do you get to see an excellent display of athleticism, but you get to hear our pep band, which is ranked #1 in the NCAA. So all around, it's just a ton of fun. So now let's transition to speak about the application process, hopefully the reason why you are listening to this presentation. Before I dive into the intricacies of the application process, I want to state that we are holistic in our review process. This increasingly is a word that is used throughout higher ed and probably throughout other college campuses. But holistic at Mason means that we care about the fullness of who a student is. We care about the fullness of an applicant, and it's these application materials, these facts, these passions that make you who you are that are what we care about. This is what we mean when we're talking about holistic review. As far as how to apply, you can apply through the Common App or the Mason application. I generally recommend that students should apply through the Common App, especially if they are applying to a lot of schools. It's more common, it's more accessible in that regard. Yet if you're just applying to Mason, you can certainly apply through the Mason application. We show no preference. As far as application materials, hopefully none of this would come as a surprise. We require your official high school transcript. No, we do not just look at your junior year or senior year mid-year grades. Standardized test scores, an essay, and letters of recommendation. I'll speak a little bit more about test scores momentarily. While the essay is optional, as someone who reads applications, we receive roughly 20,000 applications per applicant cycle. It is refreshing to read the essay. So while optional, I would encourage you to write the essay. In the midst of consuming a lot of data, a lot of numerical information, it is encouraging to hear an applicant's voice in the essay. As far as letters of recommendation are concerned, we ask that you submit 2 letters of recommendation. I have a coworker who once received 15 letters of recommendation. That is a little much, so please just send 2. I spoke about the Honors College earlier in this presentation. The Honors College does not have a separate application. In fact, as you are filling out the Mason application, either our application or our application in the Common App, you'll encounter a question that will say, would you like to apply to the Honors College? And if you indicate that you are applying to the Honors College, a supplemental 650-word essay will populate. The reason why it is 650 words is we want to see that you can be compelling, but also concise, and you'll complete that essay, and that will serve as your application to the Honors College. It's also imperative if you're applying to the Honors College that your recommenders know that you're applying to the Honors College, and if you would like to submit a 3rd letter of recommendation, you can do so. Additionally, you're a high schooler, we don't expect much, but if you have a working resume or a brag sheet, if you will, you can certainly submit that as well. in relation to applying to the Honors College. We have two colleges, or schools, if you will, that have selective major requirements. Our College of Visual and Performing Arts, CVPA, has an audition or a portfolio that are required depending upon what program you are applying to. Dates, important information regarding that audition or portfolio can be found on our College of Visual and Performing Arts website. Additionally, our Volgino School of Engineering has selective major requirements. You cannot be score optional if you are applying to our Volgino School of Engineering. At the very, very least, we would like to see a 550 on the math portion of the SAT and a 24 on the ACT. Not and, but or. With that said though, we are a score optional institution. So what does that mean? That means that students don't have to submit their test scores. But something to note, I am of the opinion, as are my coworkers, that you should submit your test scores, and here is why. As we are reviewing your application, we're looking at your transcript, your extracurriculars, all of the various elements that make up your application, but it seems as though that one-time test on a Saturday morning is not reflective of the student that we're seeing. If that's the case, and we have your test scores, if it is in your benefit, we can choose to make you score optional. But we can't do that unless we have your test scores. Something to note when speaking about test scores, and I know I previously spoke about our School of Engineering, homeschooled students do need to submit their test scores. When speaking about scores and data, I would like to share our mid-50th percentile with you, our mid-range of applicants. This is our current data, so keep in mind as far as our mid-50th percentile, our mid-range, we do have about 25% of students that fall above this range and about 25% that fall below. As far as GPA, a weighted grade point average, you're looking at a 3.3 to a 3.9 for the SAT out of a 1600 scale, and yes, we do super score the SAT. You're looking at an 1100 to a 1220, for the ACT a 23 to a 29. We are in the works of moving to super scoring the ACT, but that is not something that currently exists at Mason. So let's speak about deadlines. When talking about the application process, this may be one of the most imperative elements of this process as a whole. We have two deadlines here at George Mason University, an early action deadline and a regular decision deadline. Our early action deadline is non-binding. In fact, neither of our deadlines are binding. Our early action deadline is November 1st. This remains consistent each calendar year. Reasons to apply early. If you are applying to our Honors College, you must apply by our early action deadline. Additionally, if you apply early, you'll receive automatic scholarship consideration. Definitely some incentive there. Also, if you apply early, you'll hear before the new year. We'll begin to release decisions in mid-December. With that said, if for whatever reason you cannot apply early, you can apply by our regular decision deadline. January 15th, again, remains consistent each calendar year. Notification for our regular decision deadline begins in late winter on a rolling basis, understandably because there is a much larger pool of applicants. A few other things to note with regards to deadlines. October 1st of each calendar year, the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, opens. The FAFSA is what our financial aid office uses as groundwork in determining financial aid. Now keep in mind, financial aid is separate from merit-based aid. Our admissions office handles merit-based aid, whereas the financial aid office handles need-based aid. The priority deadline for submitting the FAFSA is January 15th. You'll note that that works in tandem with the regular decision deadline. In closing, I want to leave you with the question, what will your story be? More specifically, what will your Mason story be? In fact, why don't you take our virtual tour? That will give you an excellent sense and even further sense of what life is like on Mason's campus. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about Mason, and I wish you well in your college search.